Hi, my name is Mallika Nocco, and I am an assistant professor and extension specialist in agricultural water management.
And I'm Landon Baumgartner. I'm the Southwest Regional Outreach Specialist for UW Extension Nutrient and Pest Management. Mallika, we've had a pretty wet spring across the state of Wisconsin this year. As a result, we've seen a lot of places where conservation practices could be used, as well as the benefits of some of them that have already been put in place. One of those being grassed waterways, as we're kind of seeing here around us. Can you go a little bit in depth into exactly what the problems are that grassed waterways go into solving and where the benefits can be seen the most?
Yeah, absolutely. So grassed waterways are really kind of meant to treat a problem or treat a challenge that many of you might be seeing that we call gully erosion. So there are many types of erosion that can occur, and gully erosion happens specifically if you think of your farmscape, think of your lands, and think of the topography, right? And so when you have topography and variability in topography, or some rolling hills or things like that, sometimes, like during a rain event, you will see a channel forming. And this is a channel that will just form during extreme, precipitation events, larger precipitation events. And then you'll start to see this gully erosion. And you can actually see a gully form that can be up to a foot deep at times. So it can be a pretty significant cause of erosion and loss of your topsoil. And, when you lose your topsoil, you also lose your fertility and you lose nutrients. This is a loss for the farm, but it also can be a loss for surface waters, as the water that carries them away can transport them to other surface waters where we don't want those sediments to be, and we don't want those nutrients to occur. And that's really why these grassed waterways are installed. They're an engineered solution that, if done correctly, can help to really eliminate gully erosion.
You mentioned this is an engineered solution that, if done correctly, can be a good solution to a problem that can be either just starting or way down the road, pretty severe. What goes into kind of the design and placement, and where do we turn for that kind of information when we're looking at doing it right?
Yeah. So I know you were with the NRCS before you joined us with UW Extension, and the NRCS actually has some really specific design considerations and specifications for what these grassed waterways can look like. And, more generally, I think that this is something that you'll really want to, once again, observe your landscape, come up with a plan, work with, a contractor who's put in some of these before and has an understanding of the specifications. Just an example is the shape can be really important. So one shape that is really beneficial is a shape of a parabola, not to get too mathy, but a very wide, shallow U can be a great shape for these grassed waterways, or also a trapezoid can be a great shape for these waterways. And the shape and the design, it's really intended to slow down the water. Right? So if you have a grassed waterway that's more of a V shape or starts to become that way over time, then it's not doing what we want it to do, which is to slow down that water and trap those sediments.
So there's a lot of benefits to these kind of practices once they're put in. Are there any sort of drawbacks or cons to the pros that we should keep in mind?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's really important when you kind of engage with any of these types of conservation practices to really understand what you're getting yourself into, So there is some maintenance that's required. So depending on the vegetation that you select, if you want to kind of think about there are other benefits in addition to the hydrologic ones and the topsoil benefits in what vegetation you choose, So you could choose forage to put in your grass waterway, and then you'll want to maintain it as an additional forage crop, which is fantastic. But then that's going to require some maintenance, whether it's cutting it as hay. Some folks are even grazing their grass waterways, which is also going to require some maintenance. Mowing is something to consider. Some people are using prairies and grass waterways as an opportunity to plant, a prairie. And if you do that, then you're going to want to make sure you establish that prairie, right? So in the first year, you're going to want to do some maintenance. You're going to want to kind of do the maintenance that you do to establish a prairie. So over time, that might involve reseeding, that might involve some control of non-prairie species that are mixing in. That might also involve some reseeding if your prairie isn't the prairie that you'd hoped it would be and you didn't have the establishment that you'd hoped. And it can even involve some controlled burning. So depending on your choices in your planting and your function and like how do you want this to look on your farm, there can be some maintenance associated with that. And I will say, there is this benefit that people love with these grass waterways of biodiversity, right? But biodiversity is fantastic. It can attract pollinators. It can attract, different kinds of animals. But then some may not all be friends to the farm. So you also will want to consider, are there weedy species that are being attracted to the grass waterway? Consider pests. Look for diseases. So it actually would be beneficial to be scouting the grass waterway and treating any sort of challenges to the farm that might come up. As a result of this introduction of different species and different types of biodiversity to your landscape.
With everything, it comes back to management, right?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Well, thanks, Mallika.
Yeah, thank you. It's been a pleasure.
For more information, do some research and look up the latest info from UW Discovery Farms, as well as visit your local conservation office for both local and federal assistance through your county or the USDA.